Welcome to Be More Super, the podcast.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman.
An action-packed podcast where we'll discuss all things entertainment.
You're the answer to Are We Alone in the Universe?
Conventions, prop collecting, cosplay, interviews, reviews, and so much more. The show starts with host Brian Gardner right now.
So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, there's a definite trend with the show at the moment because I'm getting quite a few guests from 24, and I've got to say this week's guest is probably at the top of all my dream guests from the show. It's, of course, Tony Almeida. It's Carlos Bernard. Welcome to the show, Carlos.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I've previously interviewed people like James Morrison, Xander Berkeley. Last night I interviewed Eric Balfour that played Milo Pressman in the show as well. And you're at the top of my list. I'm still trying to get Kiefer Sutherland. He's very sort of...
Who's that?
Kiefer Sutherland. I'm trying to get him.
Who is that?
He plays a small part in the show, and he runs around with a satchel.
I'll give you his address. You can just go stand outside his door and wait for him and grab him.
Well, I'm not at that point yet, but it could be. My wife watched 24 for the very first time the other night, and all she could say was, "Is Jack always like this? He's always tense and angry and running about." And I said, "Yeah, that's Jack. It's fine.
Yeah,
we get 9 seasons of that." But
oh my God! So she's watching it 20 years after the fact.
I know.
Did you watch it with her?
Yeah, well, no. I've watched it probably from start to end, probably about 4 or 5 times now, because there's so
Does
much
it hold
that
up?
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
It does.
I mean, there's so much that goes off in the show. Literally, if you rewatch it, you notice things that you never noticed before because it's so tense, and the work that goes into it is fantastic. But before we chat about the show, how is everything with you? Because I know that you're directing now, which is awesome. How is everything with COVID and getting back to work and all the restrictions?
Well, I really was not working for the first, I'd say 9 months of it or so. I really decided I wasn't going to work until January 1st because I just wanted to, I have a 2.5-year-old at home, and I just want to make sure they worked out all the kinks and made sure they were doing things, the best way possible before I sort of dipped my foot in the water. And, so I literally January 1st, I got on a plane to New York to go direct FBI, which I don't know if you guys get FBI there, do you?
We do, and it's an awesome show.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the second year I've been directing it, and I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, it's a fun show to direct. So that was my first time into the COVID world working, and it was interesting. It takes a little bit of adjustment for sure. The people that run FBI, it's a wolf show, and they and Universal Television. I'm dying to know how much they invested into the COVID process, because they had it so worked out down to the tiniest detail. I mean, I never really felt in danger, It felt perfectly safe the entire time. We get tested every single day before you step on the set. Everybody. So, everybody on set's been tested every single day. The only thing that I really had a hard time dealing with was not so much the mask, but the shield you have to wear. And you feel like you're in a spacesuit talking to actors sometimes. And that was a little difficult. That's probably the hardest part to get accustomed to. And then I had moments where I just grab the shield and throw it away. And,
you dangerous person, you. Do you know what? I was chatting to another actor the other week, and he was saying that when they were shooting his scenes, he would take the mask off, and how different it felt being close to someone else without a mask on that's not family. It's just a weird process. But I suppose, Universal could have saved money and just got Tom Cruise on the set, and he could be just shouting at everyone, and that could have made people fall in line a bit quicker.
I've never worked with him, so I don't know what his working practices are, but whatever. It was fun. I'm looking forward to the day when we don't have to wear masks. How's that? That'll be nice.
Oh, that's just going to be fantastic. But let's talk about 2024 because, the fans are just unbelievable for the show, and 24 is a global sensation. It really is, and it keeps going. It really does. I mean, what do you think is, what is the success of that show, and why is it, lasted so long amongst fans?
I have no idea. Honestly, I really don't know. It's one of those things where I think, when it comes to television and films too, I think if people knew why things were a success, they'd be pumping them out all the time. It's just timing and so many things have to go right for a show to be good. Let's just start with good. So many things have to go right. And to have happened what happened with this show, it's kind of I sort of write it down to sort of a cosmic thing. I mean, it's just the stars aligned, and this show became what it became because I will tell you a story that I'm not sure if I've shared this before, but I did the pilot of 24, and I was just a guest star on the pilot. But when we shot the show, I just had a special feeling about it. I loved the cast, and the way it was shot was obviously at that time very different, and it just felt special to me. And I was offered, and what happens in that situation where you shoot a pilot maybe in April, March or April, and then you wait until end of May to see if it gets picked up to series, And so we were in that period between the time we shot the pilot and the time the show got picked up, and I was offered another show to go that had been running for a while, and it was okay. It was a job, but I wanted to wait for 24, and my agent at the time kept calling me and trying to get me to take this other show. And I was like, look, I'm not going to take it because I just have a feeling about this show. And if it goes, I'm going to slit my throat because I'm going to be doing that other show that I have no interest in, making a paycheck. And, and he kept pushing me. And I finally said, you know what? I was in a Starbucks. I was in a Starbucks on the phone with him the final time. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Listen to me. Stop talking. Shut up. I'm not doing that fucking show. You want to do it? You do it. And he's like, but you're not even a series regular. You're just a guest star. And the chances of getting picked up as a series regular is infinitesimal. And I'm like, shut up. I'm not doing the other show. And I was shouting. I'm trying not to shout here because my son's asleep and taking a nap right now. But I was literally losing my mind inside of a Starbucks. People are looking at me, and there was anyhow. So, and thank God I waited, because it is the truth that if I had been doing the other show and this one went and became what it did, I would have, I would have grabbed the nearest knife.
But the question is, how well did the other show do?
It's still on the air.
Okay.
No, no. The other show was a soap opera that goes on forever. You know what I mean? I mean, those shows go on for years and years. I think the people that I worked with on that show are still doing it right now. The point is that, another example of that, of things just aligning the way they do, is I was on a different soap opera like a year before 24, and I got fired from it. And I got fired
Right.
because I kept playing this character the way I wanted to play it, which was, he was kind of a loose wheel Spanish painter. I thought I had a lot of humor, and they kept trying to play this sort of serious Spaniard, soap opera Spaniard character. And I'd just be like, the thing with soap operas is that you gotta shoot a whole episode in a day. So you just gotta move. So you're only going to get a couple takes of any scene. So they would give me a note, and I would be like, yeah, that sounds good. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then I would just do it the way I want to do it. And after about 10 months, they called me up and fired me. and rightly so, by the way. I would have fired me too. But that made me available for 24. I mean, literally, it was, I think, 7 months later that I auditioned for the pilot of 24. So it's that thing of like, when I go speak to acting classes or, any sort of young up and coming actors, I'm always like, look at you, you got to follow your heart. You got to do what you got to stick with, what stimulates you, what turns you on, and follow your instincts, because that's all you have are your instincts. Otherwise, you're just following other people's lead, and you're doing what they want you to do, But anyhow, so I don't know. What we're back. The question was why is 24 successful? I have no idea. I really don't. I think it's just there was great people behind the camera, great writers, really fine directors. The crew was spectacular. The cameramen were spectacular. The editors were fantastic. That was sort of my film school for directing. I would go in and hang out with the editors. I would go watch them work. I would be on set when I wasn't shooting, watching and just soaking it all up. We had a cigar room in the studio where we would go. Anybody who smoked cigars would go up there and hang out, and all the writers did. So I would sit there with them and sort of pitch ideas back and forth with them, and it was all just. It was just a special group of people that came together. And then to add into it, in all the 7 years that I did the show, nobody was ever phoning it in. Nobody was ever taking it for granted. I think we always, all of us, including Kiefer, knew what we had, that it was special, that it was to be revered and treated properly, and to put your best in every day and not take it for granted. And and the crew as well. The crew was right there with you the entire time. We had such a small turnover in crew. It was, everybody was just sort of in it, in it to make it as best as possible. And so there's that element, but then you could do that and a show could still fall flat on its face, So a lot of that is timing as well, and what an audience is craving at the time, I guess,
And talking about the pilot, Tony Almeida nearly never existed. It was Andrew Geller. Am I right in saying that? Have I got the information right?
That is right. I don't remember now. I remember that, but yes, as you say that, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So your character was going to be called Andrew Geller, but thank goodness it was Tony Almeida, because that suits you a hell of a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what happened. I think they cast me, and we were about to walk on set to start shooting my character's first scene, and we were in the hallway talking about the character's name. We were still trying to come up with a character's name, because Joel Surnow, who co-created the show, was like, we can't call you Andrew Geller. That's ridiculous. And so we'd been shooting names back and forth, and they'd come up with Tony Almeida, and then they came down at the last minute, literally the last minute before I'm going to go out on the stage and start shooting the first scene, and my name is used in the scene. And so we had to pick one. And so they come down, and Joel's like, well, we can't use Tony Almeida. We can't. It has to be Tonio Almeida. And I'm like, that's like a porn star name. It's the Tonio. Who's called Tonio? You know? Well, we can't clear Tony Almeida. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Tonio Almeida?
Tonio, you need to have a shirt open.
That's what we have to go with. That's what we have to go with. So I'm sitting there in this scene, and I'll never forget it. Kiefer comes walking into the office, turns to me, and he's like, Tonio, Tone. And he's like, what the hell's your name? What's his name? And they're like, Tonio. He's like, Tonio. God bless him. He's like, I can't call him that. I'm calling him Tony. I can't call him that. And so we shoot the scene. He calls me Tony, and there it is. And it was, thank God.
Good old Kiefer.
Because Tonio would have been killed off in episode 3 for sure.
Oh, do you know what? Tonio would be a soap opera actor with a shirt open, hairy chest, and medallion.
Romance novel or character, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, talking about your character as Tony Almeida, how much of that character was you, and how much of the character was created by the show? I mean, how much of your stamp was on that character?
I mean, I think you can't. I think you have your. I mean, I think that. I guess I can't speak for other actors, but for myself, there's a large part of yourself in every role. I think if there isn't, there's usually something that bumps me if that's the case with actors. I mean, even somebody like Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, there's going to be a large part of who he is in that character, no matter how much he transforms himself. So, yeah, there's a lot of me in that character for sure. I think, honestly, the character written on the page when I got the script, I was like, this is not even. I don't have a prayer in getting this. I don't even know why I'm going to go in and read for this, honestly. And because of that, when I went in to read for the show, I remember being in the waiting room talking to friends that were there waiting to go in and read. And I had so little on it because because the part was wrong for me, you know? And it was much more intellectual character, much more sort of tech oriented character. And I was like, I think what happened is that it's just not even remotely similar, the character. So I think there is a large part of me in the character. I shaped it. And they wrote for that. You know, one of the things with television especially is that they'll write for an actor. They'll give you a lead. You can give them a lead as well. And that's sort of how a lot of characters develop on television. So yeah, I think there's a large part of me in it, probably.
And what sort of training did you have to go through for the role of Tony? Because we see Tony handling guns, fighting on screen, jumping about. I mean, what sort of training goes into that for an actor?
Well, I had competed in martial arts. I from the time I was like 9 years old, I think I was always involved in martial arts. So the fighting part, and I'd done a lot of stage combat as well. So between those two things, the fighting part was something that was already a part of me. But and although I had handled guns before on shows and films. There was a little bit of training with the guns and going out to a range and sort of learning how to shoot them properly and hold them properly, all that stuff. Yeah.
And did you ever get injured on set, during the shooting?
Yeah, but it's always the stupid things, It's always like you catch a corner of a door on your arm, or it's never getting punched by somebody by mistake. It's always It's always you wake up like. Maybe you're going to sleep that night or wake up the next day and you have something that you caught on something during a fight the day before that you didn't even notice at first because of the adrenaline, and then you get home and suddenly you're like, "Wow, what the heck is that?" You know. So just like just the nicks and scrapes and bumps, nothing serious.
I mean, looking back at your character, because obviously, as you mentioned, like 20 years ago, the show started. Did you ever imagine Tony to have such a character arc through those seasons to where you are now? Because that's just astonishing. It really is.
No, it was really pretty special. I knew, again, when we shot the pilot, I knew that there was potential for the character. I knew there was a great place to go with that character. Which is one of the reasons that I was really, even though I was just a guest star on that pilot, I just had a good feeling about it, story-wise, where you could go with it. But to go where they went over the years and years of it, no, I did not expect that. That's a pretty special thing. It's one of the great things about television. If you are on a series that runs for a while, but also if the series isn't just a procedural that's basically, the case of the day, if it's a continuing storyline, which, most shows are now, in that day, that was very rare. I mean, in fact, they were thinking of canceling the show the first season because of that, because of the continuing storyline. It was, at that time, it was CSI, you know what I mean? Like every episode has its story. And so one of the problems with that show at the time was the continuing storyline, which of course now is pretty much every show. And that's what's wonderful about it. It's like a book. You just keep going with those characters. But that was pretty special about that, particularly back then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we see you share the screen with many actors.
By the way, they did have to write. Fox asked them to write a spec script for season 2 where the show turned to every episode was its own story. Right. And they were thinking of doing that for the second season and then ended up not doing it, thank God.
Thank goodness, because could you imagine that one episode? It's like, no. It doesn't make it what it is. So you share the screen with so many wonderful actors. Who has been your favorite to share the screen with? Acting opposite
on that show.
Yeah.
Man. I love working with Cherry Jones. Who else?
There was a great scene with John Voight. Season 7.
I'm sorry, John.
John Voight. Voight.
John Voight. Oh, I loved working with John Voight. I loved working with John Voight. Yeah, he was one of my very favorites. It's funny. John Voight, oh my God, he was such a joy to work with. He really was. He's such a good guy. And he came in the very first day we were shooting together. He came into the makeup trailer and he comes up and introduces himself. And I'm sitting in the chair and he's standing up. He's like, hi. He goes, I just wanted to introduce myself. And he says, I'm John Boyd. I said, hi, how are you? He goes, he looks at me, he looks me up and down. He goes, Tony Almeida. I just need to take you in a little bit here. It was just kind of, he was already in character. He was already like, what is it I'm up against here? I mean, he was sussing it out right there. It was hysterical. I mean, he was a lot of fun to work with. Yeah,
I bet.
Yeah.
But yeah, some great actors. And do you ever keep in touch with any of the cast? Are they on speed dial? Do you text every now and again?
I do. Every once in a while. I will tell you a funny story. I just came back, flying back from Miami to LA, and I was, we have to. My son's 2.5 years old, so we try to get night flights, right? We try to take off at about his bedtime, like around 9 o'clock or so, right? And I couldn't get 3 seats together on this flight. So I was like, I bought, but I had to get back. So I bought these 3 seats that were separated. And I called ahead the day we were flying to see if I could move them together. And they're like, we can't do that. You're going to have to try at the gate before you get on the plane. So we go to the gate early and we ask the guy at the gate, hey, any chance you can move these seats together? Because we have a 2.5-year-old and I don't think anybody really wants to be sitting next to him. And apart from us also, and blah, blah, blah. So he gets 2 of them together. He couldn't get a third one together. He goes, well, we can ask the person sitting there if they would switch with you. That's our only option. I'm like, oh, okay. So he gets on the mic. He goes, Marilyn Rice Cup. Marilyn Rice Cup. It was Mary Lynn.
Oh my God.
Who was sitting in the seats.
How funny. How funny. Chloe.
She comes walking up and I'm like, what are the odds? What are the odds?
Imagine? Can you imagine the people there?
I kept looking at her. She's looking at me. I'm like, wait a second. Wait, what are you doing here? And of course, she was like, no, I won't switch with you.
Bless you.
But that was unbelievable. That was this last weekend that it just happened. Yeah. So, and I've been in contact with Marilyn. I actually tried to get Marilyn to act on an episode of Hawaii Five-0 I was directing. There was this comic character that I thought she would be great for. And she was like, she had another job that was conflicting and she was trying to work it out. She couldn't get free to do it. That would have been a blast.
Well, you know what? I was chatting to James Morrison the other day, and I said that you were going to be on the show, and if he had any gossip. He said he wasn't there, but I don't know how much truth is in this. Apparently, you got arrested on the set of 24. I mean, what is that about? Can I hear it? And could you tell me more?
Oh, yes, I can tell you more. So, this was season, oh gosh, I don't remember what season. I think it was season 4, maybe. It was season 4, I think, yes. And, oh my gosh, what's her name, the actress? Oh gosh. I'm blanking. She's really great. She played the terrorist woman in the pilot.
Mandy.
And then Mandy. Yes, she played Mandy.
Yes, Mandy. Yeah.
Kirshner. Mia Kirshner.
Yeah.
Mia Kirshner. So this was a scene in season 4. We were shooting a parking garage the entire day, about 2 hours out of LA, hour and a half out of LA. All the scenes that day were in this parking down there in this area. And it was basically Kiefer, myself, and Mia in all the scenes, just us. So we had the whole encampment out there, right? So anyhow, I drive up in the morning and I was talking to John Cassar, who's, our main director on the show. And John Cassar is a wonderful guy. He's always in a good mood. He's like a little kid, when it comes to especially 24. He freaking loved working on it. And so it was a joy. But this was towards the end of the season. And, when you get to the end of the season after 10 months, you're tired. Everybody's tired. And he was kind of in a cranky mood. And I was like, I pulled up and I get out to go into my trailer and Mia's sitting outside of hers and she goes, hey, how's it going? I'm like, good. How you doing? She goes, I'm really good. I'm feeling mischievous today. And I go, oh, really? She goes, yeah. I go, you want to play a practical joke on John Cassar? And she goes, sure. I go, great. So I call over, and I don't even know why I thought about this, but I called over the police that were guarding the set. There are guys that are on duty and guys that are off duty, and these guys were on duty. And I called them over and I said, "Hey, would you like to play a practical joke on our director?" And they're like, "Sure." and I go, "Great. Why don't at about what time are you guys off at?" They go 3:00. I'm like, "Perfect. Around 3:30, why don't you walk onto the set and say that you tell Mia that you caught her buying pot off of an undercover cop in the parking lot outside and that you were placing her under arrest. And they're like, oh, great. Well, usually what happens is we'll go up and we'll ask her if she did it. And usually they confess right away. She goes, oh, perfect, even better. So ask her, and then she's going to admit to it. So you're going to start cuffing her, and then I'm going to start swearing at you and yelling at you, and then you're going to arrest me too. And the cops are like, great, beautiful. And I go, because it's gonna freak the hell out of the producers. And so 3:30, they're like, awesome. So I'm sitting there, looking at my watch, and we're shooting some scene with Kiefer and Mia by a car in the garage, standing outside of a car. And right on cue, man, these guys come walking on the set, and these ADs come running up to John, and they're like, hey, John, there's police on set. He's like, what? He goes, yeah, there's police on set. So we go walking right up to Mia, and they said, ma'am, did you, our undercover officer said that you bought marijuana off of him out in the parking lot? And she's like, yeah, so? And they're like, okay, we're placing you under arrest. And they start cuffing her. And John Cassar and the other producers like, oh, officer, there must be some mistake. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Are you kidding me? This is what we pay our tax dollars for? They're like, sir, shut up. I'm like, no, I'm not going to shut up. This is fucked up. This is what we're paying our tax. This is where our tax dollars are going so that you can go arrest little girls in the parking lot buying marijuana. And they're like, sir, one more word out of you and you're under arrest. I'm like, fuck you. And they're like, you're under arrest. And they start cuffing me, and John Cassar starts just exploding his head. And I turn the Kiefer. I'm like, how come you're not saying anything? He goes, hey, man, I'm on parole.
Yeah.
I can't say anything.
Awesome. That is awesome.
And John grabs me by the throat. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're screwing everything up. And I took a camera out of my pocket, and I just clicked a picture of his face. He looks at me, he's like, oh my God. And that's when he realized that it was a practical joke, but it was pretty funny. Everybody, the other thing is that they're all on the phone back to Fox going, we have a problem. Two of our actors have been arrested. We can't shoot anything, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars down the drain, right?
Yeah, I bet. Oh dear. Oh dear. So at least you didn't get really arrested, which was good, because when he told me to ask you about it,
I don't think I got really arrested anytime. I don't think I did. No. Good. No. But you've died on the show, and you've been resurrected, quite a few times. I mean, I was reading here that apparently, I don't know if this is right, Tony was originally supposed to die on several occasions. The first being when he was shot in the neck at the beginning of day 3. The second time in Mandy's car after it explodes towards the end of day 4. The third time he's supposed to die with Michelle when their car exploded in day 5. And lastly, when he was supposed to be murdered by Christopher Anderson. How many times is that? Is that four times? Yeah. The one that sticks out in my mind of all of those was the day 5 explosion at the first episode of day 5. Because I was driving to the airport after we wrapped season 4, and I was driving to the airport to pick up, I think my mom was coming to visit or something. Anyhow, we were driving to the airport, and I get a call from all the producers on the phone. And I was like, oh, this isn't good. This is not good. And, when the producers call you at home, I've learned, never a good thing. So they call me and they say, hey, listen, we just want to tell you how much we love you and how great it's been, working together. And I'm like, oh boy, here it goes. And they're like, but we got to tell you that, right now we're we're going to kill you in the first episode of season 5. I'm like, oh, really? And they're like, yep. So yeah, we are. It's hard. It's a hard decision, but we feel like for the story, it's the best thing that serves the story. And I go, well, so how's it going to happen? They said, well, you and Michelle are now living together, and you go out to get in the car to go to work, and the car blows up and you both die. And I'm like, huh? I go, oh, well, seems to me like you're wasting a good story there, but okay. And like, what do you mean? I go, well, I mean, wouldn't it be better if she died in the car and I lived to go after her killer? I mean, then you have a whole storyline.
Mm.
And they're like,
You're writing it for
let us get back to you. Literally, they're like, well, let us get back to you. I'm like, okay. And so
So you basically saved your own job.
I saved my own job. And by the way, I think I had done it before I've been writing for, as long as I've been acting. So this is the thing, is that I would go in with scenes that I thought would be cool in certain episodes, and God bless them. This is the other great thing about this show, is that it was completely collaborative, and in that if you brought in ideas, they would be like, yeah, let's do it, or sometimes, no, we can't do that. That doesn't work, but they're open to them. So at this point, I'd already had 4 years of that, of pitching ideas. So it was natural. And we, like I said, we would sit around a cigar room and pitch ideas back and forth about things. And that's just the way we were together, So at this point, it wasn't that outlandish for me to come up with an idea like that. But yes, I did. I saved my own ass.
And talking about scripts, season 7 or day 7, I've got to say,
after that idea, by the way. That
was
season
it?
7 came from that. Well, that's where that idea started.
Yeah, of course,
right?
yeah.
Anyhow,
and that day you go from, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad throughout it. It's like literally, are you on Jack's side? Are you on the other side? And are you a double agent, triple A? How far in advance did you have the script and knew the storyline? Because it must have been crazy for you to get your head around the fact of the scenes and putting your head into Tony's character,
Well, you wouldn't get scripts that far in advance. I would get ideas from them, where it's going to go and stuff. But I think the thing is that what helped me with this show, especially that season, was my character's objective was to be the good guy in their eyes. I mean, anything. I want them to believe me no matter what is going on, right? So, to me, it was. I guess to me, I was always going on. My character needs to get the killer to my wife. That's what it's all about, no matter what. No matter I'm considered a good guy, a bad guy, whatever it is, and in the audience's eyes, my character's objective is to get to the guy who killed my wife. And so that sort of roots you through the entire story, right? So yeah, things would change and go back and forth, but it always aligned with what my objective was as an actor and that for that character. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And then at the end of that, we see you disappear. And then 24 ends and the world mourns. And then all of a sudden we hear 24 Legacy is coming to our screens. And you make a surprise appearance. And then you're in 24 Legacy, which I've got to say is stunning. And you're the only original cast member from the 24 previous to be in Legacy. What was it like to have finished that journey with 24 and then come into 24 Legacy?
It was it was interesting because when I stepped on set, my first director was John Cassar, who we worked together for whatever. He worked on all 7 seasons of that. and then my next director was Stephen Hopkins, who Stephen Hopkins directed the pilot of 24 and the first season, right? So it was very sort of wow, this feels really familiar, and somehow this character is back in me, and I don't know why. Like it didn't take a lot of effort to get back into that character, even though the world was very different and the characters were very different that he was surrounded by. But it felt oddly like like a dream sequence of some sort. Like, well, this is wild. Oh, we're back here again. What's, so, yeah. And, I wish it would have done better, and I wish it would have had a longer run. I was supposed to direct in the second season of that. And because I was never able to direct 24 because we shot 2 episodes cross-bordered. So there was no way for an actor to be able to do the prep and shoot of that show. So I was really looking forward to directing Legacy, but that didn't happen.
And the question you probably get asked all the time, do you think we'll ever get you and Kiefer and the band back together for another season?
I don't know. I'm kind of shocked that they haven't, in a way, Yeah. They did Legacy, which is, I'm not sure. I think Kiefer would do it. I can't remember. I think the last time I talked to him, I think there was a point where he didn't want to ever do it again. And then I think, I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I don't know. I guess it's possible, but they got to do it soon before I'm like using a cane and a walker.
You'll be a lot sorer in the mornings after filming now.
Yes.
You'll be feeling it a lot more. You'll be letting other people do the fight scenes. Did you keep anything? Sorry, what was you going to say?
No, I was going to say that in Legacy, I had a long fight with Corey Hawkins' character, and it was a fun fight. It was a long one, and I remember I had to stretch out extra for that day. Extra stretching.
Ice packs everywhere. So, what I was going to say now, did you keep anything from your days on 24? Did you keep any, souvenirs or borrowed anything, should I say? Because I know that a lot of people...
Hold on one second. Ah, yes.
It sounded like you was making a drink. Wait there. I'm just going to have a look. Oh, no, I can't see it. There we go. There we go. Ah, the mighty Cubs. Yes, that you had in near enough on the table in scenes.
I get fan mail to the Cubs mug, by the way.
Do you really?
They call it Cubby. I've had fan mail, songs written to Cubby. Oh yeah, I kept a few things. I kept a few little things. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I think I still have my jacket from one show and from one episode, one season.
Because the sponsors of my show, Prop Store, they sell TV and movie screen used costumes and props, and I actually bought a Keith Sutherland's shirt and jeans from day 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and he's small. Is he really that small in real life?
Yeah, he's
I don't know why I just said that.
I've
met him twice.
He's a skinny little guy. Yeah.
I've seen him in concert a couple of times with his band, and he's actually really good. So I'm really pleased for him, because many actors go into music and they're not very good. But Kiefer, taking the acting aside, fantastic musician and singer.
That's great. I've only seen a music video of his, but I agree.
Yeah, he's good. You should go and see him. And then quickly, before we wrap up this wonderful conversation about everything 24, I've got to mention Supergirl, because you was on an episode of that, which for all the CW fans out there and Supergirl fans, you play Sheriff Oscar Rodas on that show, and your storyline was quite a sensitive one and was quite a good storyline. I mean, how was that like to film? Because obviously you were the doting father that had, you know, sort of difficulty accepting, you know, his daughter's sexuality. I mean, how was that to film? Was that quite a challenge for you?
That's why I did it. I liked that. I really like that storyline a lot. The combination of his fear for his daughter, and his perception of the United States in a Trump world, you know, really.
But it's all changing. It's all changing. It's all getting better.
I think so.
Slowly.
I feel like it is slowly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the being a Mexican American in the U.S. and then also having on top of that having a daughter who's gay and being worried for her well-being, you know, and being a little bit stuck in the past, you know.
It's definitely a generation thing, and I think you know, inclusion and diversity is a massive issue at the moment. I mean, if you could change anything about Hollywood, would that be the start of it? Because Hollywood at the moment seems quite broken, because there's always something, you know, bad. You know, it's never rosy, as they say.
Well, I mean, look, Hollywood. My perception of Hollywood's always been that it's filled with people, myself included, who come from dysfunction, right? Who come from highly dysfunctional families, I think, at times. Mine wasn't highly dysfunctional, but it was dysfunctional. We had our problems. We had our issues, you know. And I think that artists, good artists usually come from that sort of a background. I think people that come out to Hollywood to sort of bag the elephant, so to speak, or trying to prove something, or they've got issues to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So when you build an industry on that, of it's not to say they're not good people. I'm just saying, and I'm, by the way, throwing myself in the lot. When you build an industry with people who have a sort of come from a dysfunctionality, you're going to have issues. You know, you're going to have issues, and it's never going to be perfect. And there's absolutely things that can be addressed, you know, and continue to be.
Yeah, and hopefully one day it will be rosy, and we'll all recognise that we're the people.
I don't think it'll ever be rosy. I don't think it'll ever be rosy.
No.
You know, no, I don't think so. I think we can strive for it, but I don't know that. I think it's I don't know. It's an interesting. It's an interesting subject, industry, though, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big subject.
It's a big subject. But I suppose we can start with our kids. I think it's definitely a generational.
That's
thing.
right. You're right about that. Yes, you're right about that. Because my daughter's a senior in high school right now, and I will tell you that they absolutely think and act differently, and it's wonderful to see. It's really wonderful.
But isn't it great? Because I've got a 3-year-old little girl and a 7-year-old little girl as well. And to think that we're as parents, we've got the responsibility and the opportunity to make them grow and not see colour or race or anything bad, and do our best that way. So definitely a generational thing. And what's next for you that we can see you in, or what you've directed? I know you just said that you was doing FBI Most Wanted.
Yeah, I just just directed an episode of the original FBI, and then an episode of FBI Most Wanted. I'm not sure when they would air in the UK. They just aired in the US. And honestly, I am right now just sort of shutting it down for a few months. My daughter's got a few months left in her senior year in high school, so I just want to be here and be with her. And then I don't know. Let's see what I do after that.
And your daughter, does her friends know, you as Tony Almeida, or is it a case of?
No. I think the only her friends' parents do, right? But no, her friends don't. Her friends make fun of actually that character from Supergirl.
Yeah.
My daughter showed me some meme that was going around of my character losing his mind in this argument that he has with his daughter, where he's just completely like, I can't remember what the caption was, but so no, they don't know me as Tony Almeida. No.
Oh, Carlos, thank you so much for giving me your time. It's been an honor and definitely a tick off my bucket list. And I can't wait to see more of FBI Most Wanted. And you've directed MacGyver as well, which I think is an awesome show. Which is a great. I mean, I watched the original back in the 80s with Richard. And this is just fantastic. And Magnum PI. So you're doing an absolute sterling job, and you'll forever be my Tony Almeida. And I've got to say, I was quite scared to do this interview because your character scares me a bit, because you don't know which side of the fence that they're on. But I like to think that he's a loyal person that will always have your back, sort of.
I like to think of that. I like to think that too. But
well, thank you, Carlos. All the best. I hope your family keeps safe and look after yourself.
Nice meeting you, Brian. Take care.
You've been listening to Be More Super, the podcast.
It was kind of a crazy, fun experience.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and share with your super friends.
In my world, it means hope.